Godzilla, New Millennium. Prologue. Castle Bravo. Bikini Atoll. February 20 February oh, February 28th, 1954. Noon. Bikini Atoll is a coral atoll in the Marshall Islands, consisting of 23 islands surrounding a central lagoon measuring approximately 229.4 square miles, or about 594.1 square kilometers. The atoll lies at the northern end of the Raleigh chain, roughly 508 miles northwest of Majuro, the modern capital of the Marshall Islands. The native inhabitants of Bikini Atoll are Marshallese, a Micronesian people belonging to the wider Austronesian ethno-linguistic family. Their ancestors are parts of the Great Austronesian Migrations, a series of maritime expansions that began from Taiwan and parts of Southeast Asia between approximately 3000 BCE and 2000 BCE. Over many centuries, Austronesian navigators spread across vast regions of the Pacific and Indian Oceans, settling islands thousands of miles apart. By around 1200 BCE, some of these seafaring peoples had reached and settled the Marshall Islands. Utilizing sophisticated outrigger canoes, extensive knowledge of ocean currents, wind patterns, and celestial navigation, they established communities across the archipelago, including Bikini Atoll. Over the following millennia, the Marshallese developed a distinct culture, language, oral tradition, and navigational heritage deeply connected to the surrounding Pacific Ocean. As such, the Bikini Islanders are descendants of Austronesian voyagers who sailed from Taiwan and Southeast Asia, crossing the open Pacific in outrigger canoes, and eventually settling the remote islands of the Marshall Archipelago. For millennia, the people of Bikini Atoll lived in relative isolation from the rest of the world, even as two world wars reshaped global politics. During the first half of the 20th century, life on the remote atoll remains largely untouched by outside events until the arrival of the United States military in the 1940s and 1950s. Owing to their geographic isolation from much of the Marshall Islands and the immense expanse of the atoll's lagoon, the Bikini Islanders had limited contact with outsiders and developed a distinct, tightly knit society rooted in shared traditions, seafaring knowledge, and a deep connection to the ocean. Bikini Atoll was a beautiful and relatively small tropical atoll in the vast Pacific Ocean. Its shorelines were largely untouched, lined with white coral sand, scattered coconut palms, and the occasional patch of washed-up seaweed, seashells, driftwood, sea stars, starfish, it's the same thing, sea urchins, and other marine life could often be found along the beaches, deposited by the tides of the surrounding lagoon and open ocean. Farther inland, the sandy coastline gradually gave way to dense tropical vegetation, wild grasses, native shrubs, ferns, mosses, and clusters of lowland trees covered much of the islands. Coconut palms, pandanus trees, Breadfruit trees and other salt-tolerant plants thrived in the warm climate, creating a lush green canopy that contrasted with the brilliant blues of the lagoon and Pacific beyond. There were coconut palms, breadfruit trees, pandanus trees, noni trees, banyan trees, beech cordial, heliotrope, tropical almond trees, and other trees and plant life. In the clearing between the forests was a Micronesian village along the coastlines of the atoll. There were cooking sheds and cooking shelters, storage huts, weaving and crafting shelters, a handful of lookout towers, burial areas and ancestor stones, as well as longhouses, cabins, cottages, and huts made of thatch and wood. There was also the sacred shrine and sacred platform, as well as a large raised stone-like platform as the communal village square, the meeting house, the chief's house, water collection area, and stables and animal pens for the pigs and chickens. Along the shores were docksides and harbors of fish drying racks, canoe houses and boat shelters, as well as docked canoes, rafts, and small boats. Connecting the village buildings were smooth dirt and gravel pathways, connecting the whole village. There were also taro pits, breadfruit groves, coconut palms, pandanus groves, banana patches, yam gardens, small vegetable plots, small maintained orchards, and domestic forests as agroforestry zones and protected garden pits. Docked along the shallow and turquoise blue ocean waters near the atoll's lagoon was the USS Missouri. The Missouri is an Iowa-class battleship built for the U.S. Navy and was assigned to the Pacific Theater during World War II, where she participated in the battles of Iwo Jima and Okinawa and shelled the Japanese home islands. She featured a distinct heavily armored bow, a towering central superstructure, and three massive heavy steel gun turrets, as well as countless anti-aircraft guns and secondary artillery guns. There were U.S. Marines, U.S. Navy SEALs, and a small contingent of Army Rangers present on Bikini Atoll. The military personnel were under the command of General Douglas MacArthur, a veteran of the occupation of Veracruz, World War II, World War One, World War II, and the Korean War. Although MacArthur had been relieved of command by the Truman administration in 1951, he was quietly retained as a senior federal military advisor and commander within Joint Task Force 7, overseeing the classified Operation Castle bomb tests. The Marines and Navy personnel pushed military rafts into shallow lagoons into the shallow the Marines and Navy personnel pushed military rafts into the shallow lagoon, loading them with crates of humanitarian supplies, medical equipment, blankets, and food rations as they helped evacuate the islanders from Bikini Atoll. Army Rangers moved along the shoreline, guiding families toward the boats, while sailors secured the cargo and prepared each raft for the trip out to the waiting ships offshore. MacArthur raised his voice over the commotion. Gentlemen, we need to evacuate every islander off this atoll. We've established a temporary camp at the military airfield outside Majuro. The islanders will remain there until we can find a safe place to permanently relocate them. And remember, we still have another 30-hour voyage back to Majuro. Let's move, move, move! MacArthur ordered. Once we're done with the evacuation, we'll do a quick reconnaissance search of 1/3 of Marine and SEAL forces to make sure nobody is left behind. Small group of U.S. Marines and Army Rangers escorted a Micronesian islander towards General MacArthur. She appeared to be in her early 40s, her long black hair swaying gently in the ocean breeze. A woven cloth was wrapped securely over her chest, while a bandana skirt reached down to her knees. Though she tried to remain composed, worry was unmistakable in her eyes as she spoke rapidly in her native language. MacArthur listened patiently before responding through an interpreter. Tell her everything is under control. Tell her everything is under control, he said calmly. The evacuation is only temporary. Every family is being transported safely to Majuro, where we've established a refugee camp with food, clean water, medical care, and shelter. No one is being left behind. The interpreter relayed his words. The woman listened intently before asking another question, glancing anxiously toward the shoreline where military rafts continued ferrying islanders to waiting ships offshore. MacArthur offered her a reassuring smile. I know this is frightening, he said. But my men are here to protect your people. We'll make sure every man, woman, and child leaves this island safely. A young Marine suddenly froze, his eyes widening as he pointed toward the horizon. What the hell is that? He shouted. Every conversation on the beach came to an abrupt halt. Marines, Navy SEALs, and Army Rangers turned toward the open Pacific, their expressions shifting from confusion to disbelief. Rising slowly from the dark blue waters was the immense back of an enormous reptilian creature, its charcoal gray hide of crocodilian like osteoderms glistened beneath the tropical sun, while three jagged rows of massive, ivory tipped dorsal plates protruded from its spine, each one towering above the waves like the fins of some impossible prehistoric leviathan. The plates curved slightly backwards, their rough, uneven edges resembling ancient stone blades, as seawater cascaded down them before disappearing beneath the surface once more. The beast growled in a loud, low-pitched humming noise, very similar to a generator, before vanishing once more under the warm Pacific Ocean waters. Silence fell over the shoreline. Several servicemen instinctively reached for their rifles, while others simply stood frozen, unable to comprehend what they were witnessing. Around them, the Micronesian islanders dropped to their knees, almost as one, bowing their heads in prayer. The woman, who had spoken with MacArthur only moments earlier, stared toward the creature and whispered in a trembling voice, Gojira. MacArthur's eyes widened. Gojira? He repeated quietly. The same Marine looked over at him, completely bewildered. Sir, what does that even mean? MacArthur never took his eyes off the distant creature. It means, he said solemnly, oh hell, he said Solomon, fuck, he said fuck, he said solemnly, I don't even, he said solemnly, ah, he said solemnly, the sun, the great fire, and he who carries the sun across the Austronesian languages. MacArthur revealed, Castle Bravo and the Operation Castle tests aren't actually tests. They are authorized as secret military operations by the executive branch and the Task Force 7 program, initiated by the Department of Defense and the Atomic Energy Commission, orchestrated to lure out and finally kill Gojira, MacArthur stated, or as we call him in English, Godzilla. March 1st, 1954. Late morning. The tropical Pacific air was thick with year-round humidity, clinging to uniforms and camera equipment alike. A warm sea breeze drifted across the deck of the USS Missouri, providing only brief moments of relief from the heat as gentle waves lapped against the battleship's steel hull above. Scattered white clouds drifted lazily across an otherwise brilliant blue sky. Several hundred yards away, Bikini Atoll sat eerily silent. Its beaches, villages, croplands, and coconut groves had been abandoned only days earlier, leaving the islands looking more like a ghost town than a tropical paradise. The Missouri had become an observation platform for one of the most significant military operations in American history. Gathered aboard were Atomic Energy Commission scientists, Department of Defense observers, officials from Joint Task Force 7, meteorologists monitoring the winds, members of Congress, federal judges, invited dignitaries, several Marshallese representatives, and other distinguished guests. Photographers adjusted their cameras, while a private film crew prepared reels of color film, hoping to capture history as it unfolded. Nearby stood Navy officers, Marines, Army Rangers, military police, hospital corpsmen, and the battleship's crew, all waiting for the countdown to begin. General Douglas MacArthur stepped onto a raised observation platform overlooking the atoll. The conversations across the deck gradually faded until only the sound of the winds and distant surf remained. Gentlemen, MacArthur began confidently, welcome aboard the USS Missouri. In just a short while, you will witness Operation Castle, specifically Castle Bravo, the most ambitious nuclear weapons test ever conducted by the United States. He turned slightly, gesturing toward the deserted atoll in the distance. The device awaited detonation atop that tower has a projected yield of approximately 15 megatons of TNT. To put that into perspective, its explosive power exceeds that of the bombs dropped on the Hiroshima and Nagasaki, combined many hundreds of times over. Never before has mankind attempted to unleash such destructive force. Several Several spectators exchanged uneasy glances while photographers quietly continued loading fresh film into their cameras. MacArthur paused before speaking again, his tone becoming noticeably more serious. But today's operation serves a purpose beyond advancing our nation's scientific and military capabilities. As very few of you are aware, this detonation has another objective, one known only to those with the highest security clearances. He looks towards Bikini Atoll. For years, our Navy has documented the existence of a massive unidentified sea creature responsible for the destruction of numerous American and Soviet vessels throughout the Pacific. Intelligence reports, eyewitness accounts, and classified reconnaissance have confirmed that this creature is real. MacArthur folded his hands behind his back. The natives of these islands call it Gojira. A murmur spreads across the assembled guests. Today, MacArthur continued, oh God, Solomon. Castle Bravo will not merely test the most powerful thermonuclear weapon ever built by the US. It will destroy that creature once and for all. Silence settled across the deck. the deck, as every eye turns toward the lonely atoll on the horizon, waiting for history, or something far older, to reveal itself. After several moments of tense anticipation, the loudspeakers crackle to life. A calm but firm voice echoes across the deck. Attention! All personnel and observers. This is the test control zone. T minus 20 seconds. The target is expected to arrive within the designated test zone. All personnel maintain your positions. MacArthur slowly lifted his binoculars toward the horizon, resting upon a small artificial island that stood Resting upon a small artificial island stood the Castle Bravo device, mounted atop a 30-foot steel tower that rose above the turquoise waters. Painted crudely across the bomb's metallic casing was the black outline of a roaring reptilian beast, its sleek, slightly narrow skull thrown back in defiance. A thick red X had been brushed over the creature. The message, unmistakable. MacArthur quietly reflected that following the successful evacuation of Bikini Atoll, he had ordered nearly all non-essential military personnel to stand down and depart to the test area. Nearly all non-essential military personnel to stand down and depart the test area. Most of the Marines, Navy SEALs, Army Rangers, and nearly half of the Missouri's crew had already been dismissed for now, leaving only the personnel necessary to conduct and observe the operation. Adjusting his binoculars, he fixed his gaze on the artificial island in the distance and stated out loud, "Get ready for Castle Bravo, everyone." The chatter aboard the Missouri disappeared almost entirely as a heavy sense of anticipation settled over the observation deck. Scientists tightened their protective gear. Photographers made their final camera adjustments, and several guests instinctively gripped the railing as they stared down the lonely artificial island on the horizon. The ship's loudspeakers crackled once again. Attention all personnel, observers, and crew members. This is the Test Control Center. Put on your atomic goggles immediately. Anyone without protective eyewear is to face away from the point of detonation until instructed otherwise. Failure to do so may result in permanent eye injury. This is your final safety warning. Across the deck, hundreds of hands reached for their dark protective goggles as the countdown continued. Far beyond the artificial islands, the Pacific Ocean suddenly churns with impossible force. Three immense rows of jagged dorsal plates slowly broke the surface, each charcoal gray spine towering above the waves as seawater poured from their razor-like edges. Moments later, an enormous muscular ray's tail rose behind them, thick and whip-like, cutting through the ocean before crashing back into the water with a thunderous splash. Then the creature's head emerged. Godzilla swam horizontally beneath the surface with the smooth, deliberate motion of a great white shark. Its elongated, heavy reptilian muzzle bore the fearsome characteristics of both an alligator and the great Tetanurian dinosaurs, while a heavy bony ridge hung over his piercing amber-orange eyes, casting a permanent shadow that gave him an instantly focused, almost intelligent glare. Two cat-like ears angled backward from the sides of his skull as the colossal beast silently continued toward Bikini Atoll. The deck of the Missouri fell into stunned silence. The loudspeakers crackled. T minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. For the briefest fraction of a second, nothing happened. Then a blinding white flash erupted from the Castle Bravo device, followed almost instantly by a deafening gunshot-like crack that split across the Pacific with unimaginable violence. The artificial islands disappeared beneath an expanding spear of incandescent fire as the detonation engulfed Godzilla's silhouette. For moments, the growing fireball climbed skyward, feeding into a towering column of smoke and vapor that blossomed into an immense mushroom cloud, stretching high above the Marshall Islands. The observation deck of the Missouri erupted into stunned silence. Scientists, officers, photographers, congressmen, and sailors instinctively rose to their feet, many in disbelief as the impossible spectacle unfolded before them. No one spoke. They simply watched as humanity's most powerful weapon announced itself to the world. Miles away, the shockwave raced across Bikini Atoll. Towering walls of dust, vapor, and superheated air surged over the turquoise lagoons with terrifying speed, while the Missouri remained safely anchored far beyond the danger zone. Hold on, I missed a sentence. They simply watched as humanity's most powerful weapon announced itself to the world. All right, sorry. Sorry about that. I missed a sentence. Just had to go back a little. Strangely, the peaceful rhythm of the tropical islands lingered for only a few final moments. Palm fronds still swayed in the warm sea breeze. Gentle waves continued to lap against the coral shoreline. The cries of distant seabirds echoed through the humid air. Then the atomic cloud arrived. The forested coastline vanished beneath the advancing wall of destruction. Towering coconut palms, dense jungle growth, and thick tropical vegetation that had stood for centuries were swallowed in an instant. Along the gravel shoreline rode a small harbor lined with weathered wooden docks, thatched huts, family cottages, storage sheds, canoe shelters, and village buildings. The homes of generations of Marshallese islanders were erased almost immediately. The blast left behind only shattered coral, scorched earth, and radioactive fallout as the village disappeared beneath the overwhelming force of Castle Bravo.